Welcome to Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition here on Atlantic Television Network. And this very special edition of the program, this weekend, we'll take a look at the FIFA ranking. Yes, FIFA ranking just been released within the week. And this weekend, we'll take a look at how the top teams have been in the world generally, and we'll break it down to Africa, where we'll look at the top 10 teams in Africa and see which of the teams have made remarkable improvement. It's a very busy weekend in football. After return to club football this weekend, the attention will shift to Spain, where Real Madrid will take on Atletico Madrid in what has been dubbed one of the biggest derby encounters you can find anywhere in the world. Down here in Nigeria, the National Youth Games is taking center stage in Asaba Delta State. We'll bring you details of what to expect this weekend and even more from the National Youth Games. So stay with us. When we return from the break, we'll serve you with our main focus, which is FIFA ranking, how the teams in Africa and the rest of the world have performed in the just released FIFA rankings. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's a Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition here on Atlantic Television Network. And on this weekend, I have with me Kingsley Marwa. Nice to have you, Kingsley.
Thank you very much for having me here. Very happy to be here.
And this is a weekend where our focus is on FIFA ranking. There's been so much hue and cry about FIFA ranking. Some people believe in it, some say they don't believe in FIFA ranking. But first, we'll take a look at what is FIFA ranking. And I can go straight to let you know that FIFA ranking is a system, whereby result of matches, international matches by football national teams are determined, used to rank the teams in order of 1, maybe to 100, or depending on the number of teams that have been ranked. And I can further break it down to say that initially, this is a system that started in about 30 years ago, 1993 to be specific. I think it was December 1992 when FIFA came up with this idea of ranking. And this is over 30 years now. But putting in perspective, in the last a few years, initially started with 8 years, to determine results of matches played over a period of 8 years, and give you some kind of coefficient or some points, But here now, is the latest FIFA ranking is determined by a result of international matches played by countries in the last 4 years. And what they do is that they give points for every win and every draw and every loss. If you win, a team in the higher order, you get more points than when you win a team that is on the lower rung of the FIFA ranking. So it is a coefficient of factors, but basically it is determined by a win, draw, or loss situation, by teams, and depending on which team you win. If you win a team that is lowly ranked, you don't get higher points. But if you win a team that is maybe the first place or second place or higher on the ranking, then you get more points. And so that will explain why maybe Nigerian Super Eagles will beat a country like Sao Tome and Principe by 16 goals over 16-0 over 2 legs, and yet did not make any improvement or did not get any appreciable points to make them move on the FIFA ranking. Rather than move, they rather dropped on the FIFA ranking. So I think that's a brief explanation of what FIFA ranking is. When you win a top place team, you get more points. If you draw, you get more points. Or if you lose, it depends on the team you play. And like I said, latest FIFA ranking is a coefficient of factors of matches, total matches played by national football teams in the last 4 years. So, Kingsley, that looks like a little bit of understanding, let's say a brief understanding of what FIFA ranking means. A lot of people do not believe in it, but some who understand it believe in it. Do you, let me put it to you, do you have, is this ranking a true reflection of the quality of the national football teams?
For me, I would say no. Yes, I really want to go in that direction because we've seen, teams that are not even well ranked come on to teams that are well ranked, when it comes to ranking. For instance, if you take a look at the Qatar World Cup, so the Saudi Arabia came up to beat Argentina. We saw top teams, being brought down by, smaller teams, when it comes to ranking. For me, from what I've seen so far, the FIFA ranking does not really reflect the performance or the strengths of a particular team as it is. Because sometimes, despite the we saw, I think in the just concluded FIFA Women's World Cup, so teams, the Super Falcons, of course, they were not, they're not closer to the likes of Australia and Canada, when it comes to the ranking. Even the Lionesses, of England, but they were able to put up, very, very, huge challenge. So for me, I think this FIFA ranking, yes, just like you mentioned, coefficient of points, being gotten while you play international matches, depend on your opponents, then a particular point is being accrued to you. But when it comes to true reflection of the strength of a particular team, I don't think the FIFA ranking, matters as it is.
Well, Kingsley believes that the strength of a team based on ranking may not be completely true, but I do not agree with Kingsley completely because, like you mentioned, take a case of Saudi Arabia versus Argentina at the last FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Yes, Argentina was highly ranked over Saudi Arabia, but when Saudi Arabia did beat Argentina, it improved on their ranking. They jumped up several places because that was their present strength. Like I mentioned, it is a 4-year reflection of matches played within a 4-year period that catapults you to whatever position you are. And so when you do well within a period of consideration, then you go up. Like now, it is quarterly where teams are reviewed quarterly. And so if you play a number of matches within the period and you beat top teams, your position improves. So I think for me, it's a reflection of the quality because like now, everybody knows that Saudi Arabia is no longer as lowly ranked like we used to have based on the latest FIFA ranking. Then just before we look at the teams, country by country, and maybe starting from Africa here, let's still look at the purpose of FIFA ranking. A lot of people see it as being used by FIFA, to determine the seeding order of any tournament, both in the World Cup or at the FIFA Confederations Cup. It goes down through to the Confederations Cup, both at the continent, made like in Africa, to CAF as well. This ranking is used to determine seeding for tournaments, and of course, qualification draws. For you to be involved in the draws, you are aware of the latest draws that is ongoing in CAF, where the Super Eagles have been dropped from Group A or Box A, where ordinarily they should be, and now they go to Pot B, where they will have to come up against top teams. So, don't you think this is a fair reflection of it, where for tournament purposes, top teams, are paired against weaker teams, and for you to be a top team, you have to beat,
The best.
the one of the best.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a clear reflection, for what we're seeing, when it comes to the seeding, especially, for tournaments like the World Cup. If at the end of the day you're nowhere ranked, you stand an opportunity of facing, tougher opponents, when, the draws, are being made for tournaments like the World Cup. And that's why at some point, yes, team, fight, to make sure they are well ranked by performing well, different tournaments, try and much the kind of course, to outclass, opponents to make sure they are well ranked in order for them, to avoid, tough teams, when it comes to draws, especially talking about the FIFA, World Cup, probably the African Cup of Nations as well. So for me, I think most of the time you see some teams as well, they arrange, friendly matches, especially with other, nations that are more better than them, just to see if they can actually beat them and then strengthen their ranking. I think for me, yes, it really matters, especially when it comes to seedings. And that's why I say as well, teams, try as much as you can, to play well and get well ranked in order to avoid, tougher opponents when it comes to, groupings.
Well, the teams really have to play well to avoid. Just the top teams have to play well to avoid, coming up against teams that are not, so to say, weak teams. But again, these are the ones you have to play when you come up against them. So rankings, it is to a lot of followers of the game, is a proper order to separate the big teams from the smaller teams. But again, if you're a small team and you want to prove that you're big, then you have to win a bigger team. And I think that's the whole essence of competition. And we've seen that demonstrated several times, like you mentioned, the case of Saudi Arabia doing same. And we've seen that against those smaller African countries, beating up the top African countries to qualify. But, well, like I said, the focus this weekend is on the FIFA ranking. But first, like I mentioned to you, it started 30 years ago. And since then, we have seen countries being separated by position. And first, let's look at the general overview of the ranking. In 30 years now, we've had only 8 countries who maintain top positions on the FIFA ranking. We have, out of over 200 countries that have been involved in this ranking, only 8 have come first at any point within the last 30 years. And I don't know what you think, Kingsley. What does that portend to you, where only 8 countries in the world have been number 1 on FIFA ranking in 30 years? I may further break down that to maybe I'll let you know the countries that have been number 1 ever in FIFA ranking in all of these 30 years. We've seen the country like Argentina as number 1. Belgium has been number 1, for several weeks. We've seen Brazil as number 1. There's been France, and I think there's been Germany as well as number 1. Italy, Holland, and Spain are the only 8 countries that have been number 1 in all of these 30 years. Is it so difficult to be FIFA world number 1 on the ranking table?
Yeah, it's difficult because you have to be the best. You have to play the best, to make sure you stand out, to be number 1 when it comes to the ranking. Just like the countries you've just mentioned, the likes of Brazil. Brazil, they've won, I think, they
FIFA World Cup.
FIFA World Cup, several occasions. Talk about Spain as well. They've won the FIFA World Cup. Italy, they've also done well, when it comes to international football as well. Argentina, they recently, of course, won the World Cup, which we know that, yes, they've actually put up a very, very impressive performance for the past, 10 years now. And I think for me, that's the reason why we're seeing, these countries, of course, being top, when it comes to the FIFA ranking for the period of time you mentioned, 30 years now. So I think we've really done in the Belgium. They were, the golden generation. They were very, very fantastic, despite the fact that, they couldn't add Loris.
They've not won the World Cup, but they were number 1 on
Yes.
FIFA rankings. And it boils down to, like we said, it's not about winning the World Cup. It's about the quality of international matches. When I mean quality, the results you post in international matches over a period of time. Like in the last, it started with 8 years, then it boiled down to 4 years now. It's being considered. Result of matches and the quality of position you play. Like we said, Belgium was on the FIFA ranking for a very long period. They did not win the World Cup, but because of the quality of international matches they played and the results they got within the period.
Yeah, so the result really matters, especially, with the quality of openness, you play as well. And that's why we've seen, these countries, being top, for a very long time. Belgium, like you mentioned, they've not won, the World Cup, but due to the result and the turnout in their matches and the quality of opponents, that's why we saw them maintain that dominance, for a very long time. We talk about Brazil as well, and the likes of Argentina have not been left out due to the fact that, yes, they've been very fantastic and prolific, in their game so far. So for me, I think that is what it takes, for you to maintain, for a country to maintain sort of dominance, when it comes to the FIFA rankings.
FIFA rankings that takes in consideration the quality of matches you play, and those matches determine where you are. But talking about only 8 countries in the world in 30 years to have occupied the #1 position, these countries may not just necessarily have won the World Cup or major trophies, but they have had quality international matches played within the period that could catapult them to the #1 position. Explains why Belgium may that have not been World Cup winners, but yet have maintained a long stay as the world #1 on the FIFA ranking. We've never seen an African country, as world #1. Kingsley, the highest we have seen so far as the highest African country have been on the FIFA ranking is Nigeria. Surprisingly, a lot of people do not know, but Nigeria is the highest ranked African country on the FIFA ranking. May not just today. Overall, we've seen the Super Eagles of Nigeria in #5 position in the world. Yeah. And that was in 1994, if you remember, courtesy of an excellent performance winning the Nations Cup, and not just winning the Nations Cup, they were in just but a match to the quarterfinals of the FIFA World Cup in USA in 1994. And so Nigeria occupied #5 position in the world, and no other African country has come that close of being #5 in the world. So do you think this ranking still lie? Because a lot of Nigerians do not believe in it, but they believed in it when they were #5 about 29 years ago on the FIFA ranking.
Yeah, for me, I think at that time, Team Nigeria, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, they were very, very fantastic. They were very, very fantastic. They had the strength of the team then was very, very, much. They played very well, just like you mentioned. They got to the quarterfinals, the World Cup, as a then, and that's what took them, of course, to that, level of ranking. Just like Morocco did recently, where they got to, I think, the semi-final. They were actually pushed from where they were ranked, to 13th in the world. So I think for me, it's just about the quality at that time, and that was why they were well ranked, at that point. But if you take a look at the Super Eagles at this point now, not really much, as it is, being ranked 40th at this moment, it shows you the quality. So I think for what we're taking a look at this FIFA ranking now is about the quality of the team, and just like you mentioned, the results and the opponents they've been able to outclass, in most of the matches they played. At that moment, Super Eagles, of course, they were very, very fantastic, and that was why we saw that, befitting ranking for them. But we'll probably have such kind of set of players once again.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're looking at the FIFA ranking and, the essence of the ranking. I will mention that 30 years ago, this ranking was put in place. And in the last 30 years, only 8 countries have been #1. Over 200 countries involved in the rankings in football. But in the male category, only 8 has been countries have maintained #1, or had been #1 on the FIFA ranking. And breaking it down to Africa, we have had only Nigeria, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, as the highest ranked team in the history of ranking in FIFA. They came 5th in 1994, courtesy of excellent games played within the period, and the fact that Nigeria then won the Cup of Nations and, of course, progressed almost to the quarterfinal of the FIFA World Cup after losing to Italy in the round of 16. And like I said, then number of matches were not many to be considered because the ranking order just started in 1993, and that was in 1994, just a year under. But again, it was good enough to place Nigeria #5 on the FIFA ranking, and so far, up till date, Nigeria is the highest ranked FIFA country, the highest country ranked on the FIFA's table, coming 5th. Let's now dovetail a little bit down to this latest FIFA ranking as released just a couple of days ago. And first, we'll start in Africa. And first of all, look at the top 10 teams in Africa. We have Morocco as the #1 country right now in Africa. Kingsley, Morocco, we've seen them do so well in the recent period. Will you say this has been largely responsible for why they are #1 in Africa based on the latest FIFA ranking?
Yeah, I think that's the reason why they're number one, in Africa. We saw what, of course, they were able to do in the African Cup of Nations in Cameroon. After then, they came back, down to the down to the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. They were able, to get to the semi-final of the competition. Nobody gave them the chance, and if they even did that, with some couple of home-based players, even with a home-based coach as well. So I think that's why Morocco, were actually number one. If you take a look at it, they've actually done a whole lot when it comes to football development. The national team is very much, strong. You take a look at even the club side as well down there in Morocco. They're very much fantastic. So there's a massive football growth in Morocco, and that's the reflection of what we're seeing now in the national team and as well the matches they've been able to play so far.
Morocco, the Atlas Lions of Morocco right now are number 13th in the world on the FIFA's ranking. They still have to climb to maybe meet up with the Super Eagles standard of 5 on the ranking. But for now, the Moroccan Atlas Lions are number 13 in the world, over 200 countries considered, and they are number 13 and number 1 in Africa. And that's an impressive move. If you look at the last World Cup, Morocco was at the semi-final, the only African country to play at the semi-final of the FIFA World Cup. And that has catapulted them to number 1 in Africa and number 13 in the world. 3 months ago, the Atlas Lions were, number 15 in the world. So now they have risen after consideration in the last 3 months to number 13 in the world. And we'd like to say congratulations to Atlas Lions, like I mentioned. They are the only African country at the semi-final of the FIFA World Cup, and now number 13. Courtesy of matches they have played within the last 4 years, and the quality have taken them to number 13. You talked about Morocco. They have been so impressive in football of recent. We've talked about not just the Atlas Lions, their female national team as well.
Yeah.
They have done so well in the latest ranking. They have moved up by 4 places or so. In fact, by 8 places, they are now number 32 in the world. And so it's not just the male team that's moving. The female team of Morocco is as well, they are moving as well. Overall, in the world, while the male team is 13th, their female team is number 58 in the world after moving about 14 places on the FIFA ranking.
That's massive. That's massive, for the female national team of Morocco. We saw them at the African Cup of Nations, and they were able, of course, to take down the big side, and even the Super Falcons of Nigeria, and as well the South African ladies as well, the Banyabanya of South Africa. They were able to take them down and got to the finals of the competition. They got to the finals of the competition, and they won that particular one as well. So you take a look at the World Cup as well. We saw in Australia, they were able to put up a very, very impressive performance as well. Yes, they didn't go far in that one, but I think they were able to get down to the round of 16, and was such an impressive performance. And taking down big names as well on their way was another thing that actually gave them this leap, to get down to this position. So for me, I think Morocco, the female national team, they've done well. They won the Women African Cup of Nations, went down to the FIFA Women's World Cup, co-hosted by Australia and New Zealand. Were able to get to the round of 16. Yes, they couldn't get past that stage, but take a look at the qualities of openness they've been able, of course, to pull down on their way down to this stage of the competition. And I think that's what has given them this edge. So, massive football growth in Morocco overall.
Morocco making an impressive movement on the FIFA ranking, both for the male and the female national team. We told you that the male national team is now number 13 in the world. Number 1 in Africa. The females have moved as well. They moved about 14 places, and they are now number 58 in the world. And I think that's a very massive one for the Moroccan ladies there for doing their country very proud. Let's still continue to look at the male national team rankings. Number 2 in Africa is the Senegalese Lions. The Teranga Lions of Senegal are number 2 in Africa, but they seem to have slid a little bit on the ranking table, because we know that in the past they were number 18 in the world, and but now they have gone down 2 places. They are now number 20 in the world and number 2 in Africa.
And I think that's actually as a result of what the matches they've been able to play, just like you mentioned, the past 4 years. Because remember in 2019, Senegal went to the African Cup of Nations final. They were able to dig it out, and unfortunately, of course, they couldn't win that one. But they were able to come back, in the next African Cup of Nations, which was hosted, by Morocco, which was hosted by Cameroon. They went down to the finals and were able to win that one. But that same performance, they went to the FIFA World Cup as well, in Qatar. Yes, they didn't go far, like Morocco we saw, and I think that's also what brought that ranking when it comes to the world ranking a little bit down. So far, so good. I think Senegal, they've been able to show a little bit of progress, with the qualities of openness they've been able to outclass, on their way, and I think that's why they still remain second in Africa. And in the world, yes, they have dropped, but not just that. The drop wasn't that very much huge, and I think from what we're seeing, Senegal can still bounce back, and get that form and still continue their game.
Tunisia is third in Africa and number 29, in the world of football. Tunisia third, number 29 in the world of football. So in Africa, we have Morocco first, Senegal second, and Tunisia third. On the fourth place position is Algeria, and the fifth place is Egypt. The Pharaohs of Egypt is fifth place. You wonder, where is the Super Eagles of Nigeria on the latest FIFA ranking in Africa? Super Eagles of Nigeria is ranked number 6 in Africa and way down number 40 in the world. We'll take a break at this point. When we return from a break, we'll look at the consequences of having the Super Eagles of Nigeria out of the first 5 in Africa and down to number 40 in the world. This is a team that was number 5 in the world at a stage, now playing ranked number 40 in the world. Let's take a break. When we return from a break, we'll look at the consequences of the Super Eagles of Nigeria sliding on latest FIFA ranking. Welcome back. It's Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition here on Atlantic Television Network. And I have with me Kingsley Maswell. Together, we'll bring you up to speed with the latest happening around the world of sports. But our emphasis this weekend is on ranking, FIFA ranking. We're looking at the top 10 countries in Africa and, of course, the top 10 in the world. But looking at the top 10 in Africa, we have Morocco, Senegal, and we have Tunisia as the first 3. And we equally have Algeria, Egypt as the 4th and 5th as well. No, there's no Super Eagles among the top 5 in the world, and it becomes very worrisome that Nigeria is finding it difficult to maintain a top place position, first 3 at least, in Africa. They are now dropped to number 6 in Africa. And this is a country, Nigeria I'm talking about now, who was number 1 in Africa at the stage and number 5 in the world. Now it is number 6 in Africa and number 40 in the world. How worrisome is this to you, Kingsley Manuel?
Very, very worrisome. Very, very worrisome. I think it's a very huge setback. A country that has been ranked #1 in Africa, 5th in the world as of 1994. Now we're being ranked 40th in the world and #6 in Africa. Very, very worrisome. I think it's as a result of the way we've been able to manage football, down here in the country. Take a look at, let's take from right from 2019, with the 4-year span now. We saw the Super Eagles of Nigeria went to the semi-finals of the African Cup of Nations. They were being hosted out, I think, by Senegal in that one. It came down to that of the one we saw in Cameroon. Impressive performance in the group stage of the competition, but getting down to the round of 16 was very huge problem for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. They dropped, and as well couldn't qualify for the FIFA World Cup as well in Qatar. And now we're seeing some kind of performance that we don't even the Nigerians are not really happy with. It seems they are not gelling anymore, just like the set of the Amokachi, Kanoanko, Jejuku Chino, and the rest of them. So it has been really difficult for we to see how we can replicate that same feat that we had when we were ranked, #1 in Africa and #5, in the world.
Talking about our ranking that is low now, has it got anything to do with the responsibility, the quality of international matches we've played of recent? We don't seem to be playing the top, ranked countries. We rather play, countries that are not top on the FIFA's ranking, and it seems to have affected our ranking so badly. Is the Nigerian Football Federation capable of not fixing or arranging international fixtures or friendlies that with top-ranked countries? And that could be a principal reason why we are not improving on the FIFA ranking.
I think we actually organized top-ranked friendly games. So we played a friendly against Portugal. We lost. I think we had another friendly against Mexico as well. We couldn't win those friendly matches. So we had some few top matches as well. But we've not been able to showcase our strengths whenever we face those top teams. At least winning those matches would have helped us to improve our ranking. And as well, we've actually lost against, some, let's say, smaller teams to say that we're not supposed to lose to. That was a game, at time we lost to Central African Republic when as abysmal performance. I think there was the other country that came down to Nigeria and they were able to beat us as well. So I think with the fact that we've not been able to capitalize, in terms of getting a good result, in terms of tougher opponents, and as well with smaller opponents as well has been the reason why the ranking of the Super Eagles has really, dropped. Take a look at the teams, even the teams who've even done well against Sao Tome and Principe, Cape Verde.
These are smaller countries?
These are smaller countries.
Well, it's really sad that Nigerian Super Eagles are now number 40 in the world and number 6 outside of the top 3, top 5 as well in Africa. It's very worrisome, and I hope the Nigerian Football Federation will do everything possible to ensure that we improve our ranking. Like I mentioned, we were number 5 in the 29 years ago, number 5 on the FIFA ranking and number 1 in Africa. We should return back to such a status and not continue to slide down on the FIFA ranking. Cameroon is number 6 in the world. Mali is number 7. And talking about Mali reminds me that they have made progress because they moved 2 places on the latest FIFA ranking to number 8 in Africa and number 48 in the world, and that's very good. They had to take off a big country like Greece from their number 48 position. Then we have Cote d'Ivoire, number 9 in Africa, and they too move up 2 places on the latest FIFA ranking to number 50, and they took away Paraguay from that position, and that looks very good for Cote d'Ivoire. Then number 10 in Africa is Burkina Faso, and that's the outlook of how teams have been. But just before we run out of Africa and latest FIFA ranking, Kingsley, we now have 9 African teams within the top 50 in the world. Within the top 50 in the world, we have 9 African countries. This is slight improvement. At the last FIFA ranking before this latest one, we saw, we saw 7 African countries within the top 50. Now we have 9 teams within the top 50 in Africa. Do you think this is an improvement, or we should even do better than having only 9 African countries within the top 50 based by the latest FIFA ranking?
I think we should do better. Yes, we should do better. Though it's a slight improvement, but I think African countries can do better. We can possibly look at what Morocco are doing when it comes to football development. Senegal as well. I think other countries will probably pick up and do something better. So for me, it's a slight improvement when it comes to the 9 African teams in the top 50. But for me, you take a look at countries like Morocco, Senegal, we talk about Algeria. Algeria are also in the top 50, Cote d'Ivoire. I think there's been a slight...
Yeah, talking about these countries, within the top 10 in Africa, we don't have a country like Ghana. There's no country like Congo DRO within the top 10 in Africa. South Africa is out of it. Cape Verde is out of it. Guinea as well. These are within, okay, let's say 11 to 15th in Africa. But are you surprised that a big country in football like Ghana is not within the top 10 in Africa and dropping out, far more on the latest their ranking in the world?
It's a very huge surprise. Very, very huge surprise, because this is a country, of course, that really competed very much in the last, I think, the last 10 decades.
They are winners of the African Cup of Nations several times. Yeah. We have South Africa too, another winner of the African Cup of Nations, not within the top 10 in Africa. Yeah. It's very disturbing.
Very, very disturbing. I think for what we've seen from Ghana so far, they've not been able to show much progress over time. Take a look at, let's say, during the period of 4 years now, in 2019 African Cup of Nations, they didn't do well. Even the last one hosted by Morocco, we didn't see Ghana, of course, putting up very much impressive performance, despite the fact that, yes, they've been able to get, a foreign manager in the president of Chris Hilton. The days of Asamoah Gyan, and the rest of them, we're not seeing those set of players. Now we now have new set of players. Yes, Andrew Ayew is still there, the likes of Kundus, and the rest of them, but they've not been able to live up to expectation, for some time now. The FIFA World Cup in Qatar as well, we did also see them, try and put up a very impressive performance. So the result of the matches of recent, the last 4 years, has been the reason why Ghana is even out of, the top 10 in Africa as it is.
Well, if you need to play well, you win, draw, or lose. But when you play against top countries and come up with results, your rankings will improve. But for now, Black Stars of Ghana are out of the top 10 in Africa, and very disturbing. And the same as former Cup winner, Nations Cup winner, South Africa. They too are out of the top 10 in Africa. And so it's we hope that these countries will do well. For Congo DRO or Cape Verde or Burkina Faso, we know that they still have some ladder to climb there. So that's the look at how African teams have performed. Like we said, only 9 African teams are within the top 50 in the world. And we think we should have more African countries within the top 50 in the world if you look at the quality of football that is expected on the continent of Africa. Just before we run out of that as well, we don't have time, even though we'll have looked at how the females are performing. But for the Super Falcons, while the Super Eagles are number 40 in the world, the Super Falcons are better than the Super Eagles because they are number 32 in the world of football. Kingsley, it looks like the female always do well. They improve by 8 places, to number 32 now. So the Super Falcons are, by FIFA ranking, better than the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
Yeah, because they've done well over time, despite the fact that they had an abysmal outing in the WAFCON, which Morocco won. But I think they were able to come back and play some friendly games. Went down to the FIFA Women's World Cup. They were unbeaten, in the FIFA Women's World Cup to the round of 16. Yes, they were ousted by England through penalties. But I think that scintillating performance we saw of the FIFA Women's World Cup actually gave them this leap, when it comes to the ranking. I think so far so good when it comes to female football in the country. The Super Falcons, they've done well. They won the African Cup of Nations.
They won more titles than
the male. So I think for me, we have an edge, when it comes to female football.
The Super Falcons are far better by statistics and by FIFA ranking than the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Like we mentioned, by the latest ranking, the Super Falcons are number 32 in the world and far better on the ranking tables in Africa than the Super Eagles that are number 40 in the world and number 6 in Africa. So if you're a female, I'm very sure that you have something to pop a champagne for going by the latest FIFA ranking. Well, that's enough we can take from Africa. Let's take a little bit focus on the rest of the world. Right now, number 1 playing football nation in the world is Argentina, going by the latest ranking. They are followed by France, Brazil. These are the top 3 teams in the world of football. Kingsley, do you doubt FIFA ranking by placing these teams? I'm talking about Argentina. They just won the FIFA World Cup a couple of weeks ago, and now they are number 1. They take away France. France came second at the FIFA World Cup. and they to number 2.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with this ranking, especially for where I'm seeing Argentina, France, Brazil, and England.
England is number 4.
England is number 4. I'm not really surprised at all. Argentina, they've done better. They've done well in the last 4 years. Don't forget, they won the Copa America, I think, last 2 years. Came back as well, won the World Cup. And they've been unbeaten, if not in about, I think, 30-something matches now for the Argentine national team. So it actually proved consistency and not being defeated by a smaller opponent. Rather, you see them beating tougher opponents on their way. So for me, I think Argentina, very, very impressive wonder for them. The ranking, I think, really deserving for them. For France, they've also done well. 2018, they won the World Cup as well. Went down as well. They were able to contend as well for the Euros. And then they came down as well to the FIFA World Cup in 2022 in Qatar. And they were able to get to the finals once again. So for me, I think Argentina, France, Brazil, yes, they didn't go far in the World Cup in Qatar, but they were able to push through. England is one team as well that have done well, over time. Yes, they've not gotten to the finals for the FIFA Women's World Cup, but I think they did that, was it in 2018? Yes, that was in 2018. The last 4 years, we've seen, a little bit of consistency, from England. I think that's why we're seeing them, being ranked in number 4. For me, I think the from 1 to 5 really, really deserve it.
1 is Argentina. 2nd is France. Number 3 is Brazil. Number 4, England in the world of football. And Belgium is number 5. Croatia is number 6. And a lot of people think Croatia's position is strong enough. If you look at them, they were in a very crucial, in the third place game at the last World Cup. In fact, the last 2 World Cups, they've come to play in the bronze medal position. Then we have Netherlands, number 7. Then there is number 8, Portugal. Number 9 is Italy. And number 10 is Spain. Is there any country that should have been among the top 10 that is not there, Kingsley?
Not really. When you take a look at
you think I have a country like Germany. I'm surprised that Germany is not within that level. Is that the new level of Germany? They are within the top 15, not within the top 10.
They've dropped. The quality of football in Germany, they have really dropped. You take a look at the performance at the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. They left in the group stage. They left in the group stage of the competition. And you take a look at the performance of recent. I don't think they've done well. They've not done well at all. I think that's why they've actually dropped. This is one country we always know, for better football anytime, any day. But I think the quality of football in Germany has actually dropped, and that's why we're seeing them dropping down the ranking at the moment.
Well, Germany not within the top 5 and not within the top 10, and that's a lot of people will be asking how come Germany is not there. But that's a reflection of their level of football. Interestingly, within the top 20 in the world of football, we have Senegal there, an African country, and I think that's a very good one. Senegal better than Sweden, better than Ukraine in the latest FIFA ranking, even better than Australia or the Korean Republic. They are better than Serbia as well, and I think we should be proud of that. Like I mentioned before, we have only 9 African teams within the top 50 in the world, but we believe it can be better than we can have more countries at that level of football. And that's our look at the latest FIFA ranking and what it means to the African countries and, of course, some of the top countries in the world. Don't forget, we mentioned to you that only 8 countries in the world have been number 1 since the last 30 years that the FIFA ranking was introduced. And time for us now to wrap up the show, but we'll take a look at one of the topical issues for this weekend, and it has to do with the National Youth Games here in Nigeria. A lot of youths, 4,500 youths are gathered in Asaba Delta State to compete in about 11 sports events. It is the 7th edition, actually, of the National Youth Games. And according to the sports minister, it has to do with just discovery and nurturing of young talents that will take over from the ones that are already at the twilight light. We understand about 20 venues will be used, and 32 sporting events are involved in this one. Kingsley, can we really discover talents, young talents to take in over from the Toby Amosos, the established names that we've had, the Blessing Borodudus and the rest? Because if we don't do this, we've seen situations where in the past, this National Youth Games, which has gone through 6 editions, have often been hampered by having overage athletes, such that athletes discovered from these games do not stay long before they fade away like their established counterparts as well. Will the purpose of these youth games be achieved this weekend in Asaba, where 4,500 Nigerian youths are gathered to compete in both basketball, athletics, cricket, chess, football, judo, handball, Scrabble, taekwondo, volleyball, golf. Like I mentioned, over 11 sports disciplines.
I think it will be a matter of time after we saw the conclusion of the events. Just like the sport minister said, he said the purpose is to nurture young talent. We're talking about the likes of Toby today. We're talking about the likes of Aruna Quadri. Talk about football, Victor Osimhen. Their time is going to pass, and we're looking for people that will replace them. And this is where we can actually get this, talent, of course, to replace these athletes. And for me, not by getting the athlete or probably sporting them, it's for you to see how you can give them, mates training and put them probably, take a very, very close look, in their progress to make sure that they are well trained ahead of global competition. Because sometimes we see this athlete go down there, perform very well, they win medals, they get celebrated. At the end of the day, nobody hears anything about them. But there should be a thorough process where this athlete will be properly followed to make sure that yes, they actually continue what they are doing, their different events in this sport. So for me, we can do that if only there will be a strategic method of actually putting these athletes in check.
All eyes on the Stephen Keshi Stadium in Asaba Delta State, where the 7th edition of the National Youth Games is taking place. 4,500 youths are gathered there to be discovered in different sporting disciplines. We just hope that sports minister's desire and vision to ensuring that only young athletes that have the talents are discovered here will be, I'm hoping that the organizer as well will ensure that overage athletes do not have their way at these National Youth Games. Time for us to wrap up the show, and we'll wrap up the show with our sports extraordinaire for this weekend. And it couldn't have been any other than Captain Martin Odegaard, the captain of Arsenal Football Club of England. He's just been given an additional 5 years contract, courtesy of his excellent performance in the last 2 years for Arsenal. Kingsley, this is a man who has been gotten for what a lot of people say is cheap, for £30 million from Real Madrid. Now, coming to be established as the captain of Arsenal at the age of 24 with a brand new 5 years contract.
Impressive one for Odegaard. The man has done a lot, since he came down to Arsenal. For the past 2 seasons now, his consistency, has been.
Talking about consistency, he played all the 38 games, Premier League games last season for the Arsenal.
Yeah, that's a very good one, and of course he was able to lead Arsenal to that bit of unbeaten record. We saw them last season. I think giving Odegaard 5 years contract is something. The age is still on his side, and for the fact that yes, he's now the highest paid player, £300,000, every week for the man, I think he's really deserving. When you take a look at his level of contribution and the way he has been able to, lead his side since he was actually been, given the captain armband. I think Odegaard has done a whole lot for himself, and I take a look at the bogus money he will be earning, and as well the length of the contract he has signed, 5 years. I think it's really, really deserving. Arsenal have a whole lot, to achieve with Odegaard when the captain of the side.
Odegaard, over 100 appearances for Arsenal in the last 2 years, scoring 29 goals in the process. And like we mentioned, a constant feature last season in the Premiership in England, and is doing same, scoring vital goals even as the season gets in just very early stages in the 2023-2024 season in the Premiership in England. So we'll say congratulations to our sports extraordinaire, Martin Odegaard, £300,000 a week for Arsenal for the next 5 years. That would be. And that will be it for this edition of Sports Extraordinary. We'll definitely be back next weekend with yet another bumper package. Until then, remember, peace and unity are clearly pathways to progress. Always enjoy here on Atlantic Television Network.